afternoon, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, I am... Oh, hello. Okay. I am Julie Naylor. I am 41. I'm an Auchterarder local, been here a long time. I have been a hairdresser on the High Street for 24 years. The year 2000 I went to Perth College and I used to have a salon in Auchterarder, but last year I sold it and I'm now working over at 2020, number 57. I am wildlife obsessed and I have been a wildlife photographer for 3 years, and now I've started doing some wildlife blogging and writing. Don't know if you've seen your recent Living Local magazines, I've been putting some little excerpts in there. Next. So, home is where the heart is. This is the view from my old bedroom window. I was very fortunate to be brought up just outside Auchterarder on an arable farm. As a curious child, I was always looking up birds and things that I saw. If I didn't know, I went straight home and looked it up. I would bring home frog spawn, bones, ladybirds in a jar, feathers, you name it. And I devoured programmes on natural history, especially Scottish. The countryside was my playground and I would disappear for hours on my bike or on foot exploring around the town. Next. This is how I got started. So in 2020, when the pandemic hit, I was out of work for months, over 3 months, going mad. During our daily walks, Mark and I would spot more wildlife due to the quietness of the countryside. When the 5-mile rule was set up, we would take a 2-mile walk out of the town with a picnic and our binoculars every day to a patch of woodland that I had played in as a child. We started to spot the odd red squirrel. When Mark went back to work in June, I purchased my first camera and my mission began to try and capture images like this. But more about the squirrels in a wee bit. So, we all know the benefits of going wild. It's self-explanatory. Time in the outdoors, time for calm, lowers your heart rate, provides a sense of connection with nature, which is all good for our well-being. Next, please. But did you know that watching the birds from your window can lower your heart rate and lower feelings of anxiety, depression and paranoia, and listening to their song has been proven to reduce these feelings? So, who are we sharing our gardens with? Next. Robins, of course. One of our most popular and numerous birds, the gardener's friend. Whenever you're out with the hoe or in your garden, you'll see these guys. They sing throughout the winter, so right now you hear them singing. Both sexes sing, boys and girls. They cement their territories and they look out for other mates. They are extremely territorial and some will fight to death to get the best spots. Next. And again. But did you know that robins migrate? Some cross the North Sea from Scandinavia to the UK, whilst others leave the UK and cross the Channel to mainland Europe to escape the cold. The robin that you see now in your gardens may not be the same one that's there in the nest in the summer, but an amazing little bird, so common yet overlooked. Next. Other commonly seen garden birds, this is the coal tit, one of our smallest tits. It prefers coniferous woodland, but if you have evergreens in your garden, they will come. They also come to feeders. They like peanuts and sunflower hearts. Next. This is the largest of our tit family, the great tit. Makes a really distinctive call. Sounds like a squeaky wheelbarrow. So if you're in your garden and you think your neighbour's going round with a wheelbarrow, it's probably the great tit singing in the tree. Next. Blackbirds. Again, another completely overlooked bird. There are 6 million breeding pairs of blackbirds in the UK. This is a female, quite a young one, eating her berries the way I eat my Maltesers. As you can see, the colours, the mottled toads, they're part of the thrush family. Again, not a lot of people know that. Red wings, mist thrush, song thrush, fieldfare, all the same. These are our most numerous, and they're everywhere. Next. The greater spotted woodpecker. Again, another very easily recognised bird, quite large. There's two woodpeckers can be found in Perthshire, the green woodpecker and the greater spotted. You're not likely to get the green woodpecker in your garden because they like ants, they tend to hang around where there's dead wood. But if you have nut feeders or fat balls, the greater spotted woodpeckers will come down. They have a specially designed skull for hammering into the wood to, while they create their nesting holes and cement their territories. And they start to drum now in February. So when you're out, have a listen, you might hear somebody hammering in a hole or making a territory. Next. Common toads. Now, despite their warty appearance, these amphibians are also a fantastic sight in your garden. Feeding on slugs and snails, these guys are the gardener's friend, hoovering up all your unwanted plant eaters. Our towns and roads, though, pose a huge threat to these animals. As they make their way back to their breeding grounds, on average it is estimated every year 20 tonnes of these things get squashed on the road. There are quite a few organisations out there. Toad Patrol is one. They go out weaving with buckets to these areas at roads that cross the territories, and they'll pick them into buckets and save them. Next. That was for Valentine's Day. Next. So again, once widespread addition to your garden, now hardly seen, the hedgehog. The UK's only spiny mammal, and they are in severe decline. They are nocturnal and they hibernate from around November to April. They love leaf piles, log piles, and are great for keeping the insects down again in your gardens. Keep your gardens messy and watch your strimming. You'll be surprised how many hedgehogs lose their lives to strimming and grass cutting. If you see a hedgehog, next please, if you see a hedgehog out in the middle of the day, it is probably in peril, hungry, thirsty. If you can put a little bowl of water out in your garden, or even some hedgehog food that you can buy from a pet store, it would really help these guys. In midsummer we have some really dry spells where the ground just gets cake hard and it needs to be wet. They like worms, they like slugs. So a wee helping hand, wouldn't go amiss. But keeping your garden a messy patch, that's the best. Next, please. So, how can you make space for nature in your garden? All quite simple, common sense things. Go completely natural. Don't get me started on artificial grass. It's absolutely horrific and it ends up in the landfill. There's no way to recycle it. After 20 years, it's done. Why would you do that? I have no idea. Dig a wee pond, even a small tub dug into your garden will attract other pollinators, frogs, newts and other birds. Create corridors in your garden, leaving wildflower patches and ways that the animals can move around your garden. Make a hole in your fencing to allow the hedgehogs to move freely between you and your neighbours. Add a bird box or an insect hotel that will also, if you put it, they will come. Keep your cats indoors. Now, I can't stress this enough. The Mammal Society states that cats kill or eat up to 275 million bits of prey every year. 55 million are birds. Now, I have a cat and I love birds. My cat happily sits at the window watching the birds, especially in midsummer. Please try to keep your cats in if you can. Now, a lot of these animals are missing or they're becoming missing from our green spaces. Just doing one of these things will help to encourage things back into your garden. Not mowing your grass every week, once a month. I know the neighbours think it's unsightly, but you'll have things in your garden, and if something's not eating your garden, it's not an ecosystem. Next. Now, they are UK's only native squirrel and they've been around since the Ice Age, unlike the greys who were introduced in the sort of 1900s by the Americans. They do not hibernate, instead they cache food in the winter, and only 25% of squirrels will make it through the first winter. So 75% mortality rate in the first winter, which is huge. So if you can help by supplementing them with a few hazelnuts, then by all means, please do. Next, please. Now I began trying to get these images sitting in the woods that I played in as a child, placing a few nuts round about, and I would sit patiently, listening and watching for any signs. It took a while, but the squirrels did start to trust me, and by staying very still and trying not to sneeze or cough, they would scurry down, narrow up, and off they would go. Next, please. I have spent countless hours over the last 4 years watching them, and I call it squirrel therapy. But again, like most of the things in this talk, they are in severe decline. They are perfectly adapted for Scotland's woodlands, and they have retractable ankles that retract all the way around for running up and down, which is fantastic. If you see a red squirrel or a grey squirrel, you can report your sightings to Scottish Squirrels, which helps give a map of where they are and what we can do to help them. Next, please. Yeah. Stand up for red squirrels. Now, I have spent so many hours with these guys, I can't tell. You know, I've seen some nasty altercations between squirrels, I've seen mating, I've seen, you know, in the snow. They're just wonderful to watch. Next, please. Now, that photograph was just captured last week, and I just thought you know, sitting on the walking, lit on his walking stick, I think we could tell a few tales about how it used to be for the squirrels. Next. Okay, next again. So, slightly further afield. This is the Isle of May, which is only, as the crow flies, 42 miles away. Last year, I was lucky enough to go on a couple of days with a friend to look for the animals. Of course, next please, there are puffins on the Isle of May. Small sea-living birds that only come onto land to breed and then spend the rest of the year 9 to 10 months out at sea. They're colourful and characterful birds, but there are also 90,000 on the Isle of May. They live in burrows and dig right underground and live alongside, next please, guillemots, they nest on cliff faces, not in burrows, and very, very tightly close together. Next. Shags, there's lots of them as well. Also, kittiwakes, razorbills, and Arctic tares. Next. So, over in the west, who takes a wee run out to Oban when it's a nice day? You know, it's a nice run. Next time you're there, just have a wee look over the harbour wall. You might see a black guillemot. Striking looking bird, nests in pairs. Look at the little back, look at those red feet. Unlike other guillemots who nest in huge cliff faces, these birds will nest in pairs in isolated pockets. Next, further north, the unmistakable gannet. Large, elegant seabird with a dagger for a beak, which they use for plunge diving vertically to fish. They mate for life, and next, they renew pair bonds each year as they prepare to nest. Okay. Now, when I am out and about around Auchterarder, and it's, you know, in the winter, there's not really much around, so what do? Have a look around. Are there animal tracks in the mud? I've got a few books, I take a photograph, I even have a tape measure, and I measure the prints, and I go home and I check it out, what's been there. Pick up feathers, owl pellets, pine cones, which is a sign that your red squirrels have been around. Chewed bark and tracks in and out of water, which is down on the Ruthven. Next, please. Now, I have managed to capture a few pictures and videos of the local beaver family that live on the Ruthven. Over the summer months, I managed to capture footage of some young kids. Next. Next, push it in, please. This baby beaver, probably 3 to 4 months old, munching on some shoots of alder just down the burn there. Beavers are strictly vegetarian. They eat greens only. And at this time of year in the winter, they have to turn to bark because there's not much shoots and that around. But in the summer, all the greens, butterbur, Japanese knotweed, all the things that shouldn't be on our birds, the beavers tend to munch that. Next, please. And again. Now, I did a little video. You might have to click it again.
Eurasian beavers. Scotland's keystone species makes a welcome return. On a small river tributary in rural Perthshire, a family of beavers have returned and made their home here. A UK native species once hunted to extinction for their furs and oils. Pockets of beaver families are springing up all over the country now after successful licensed reintroduction programmes. If you are fortunate enough, you may stumble across one on Scotland's waters around dusk or dawn, surveying their aquatic territory and gathering food. These natural engineers adapt their habitat, creating a more biodiverse ecosystem and preventing flooding and drought. This family live very close to me, and most evenings I tuck myself away on the riverbank, hoping for a glimpse of one. Sometimes I think they can smell me. They go about their business, in this case, collecting butterbur from the opposite bank and returning it to the lodge. I love spending time observing these amazing natural architects. Let's hope they never vanish from Scotland again. Roadside raptors. There's a buzzard there, a very, very recognised bird around our roads. Now in the 20th century these birds were almost extinct. Now they are most numerous and you see them everywhere, these guys. They make a distinct mewing call, which is often mistaken for eagles. You see them on telegraph poles throughout the country. Next. Named as the tourist eagle by visitors and Scottish people alike. But if you've ever seen a buzzard next to a golden eagle, you'll know it's a buzzard. Red kite with a distinct forked tail. As you know, probably, we've got Aggerty just over at Dunblane. They had a really successful reintroduction programme there, and we tend to have pairs all around here. Next, please. Another familiar sight on our roadside, a hovering kestrel. Now, I am a huge fan of David Attenborough, but one of his documentaries years ago said that kestrels used to be able to see ultraviolet light, and the voles and the mice, as urine, would leave a track of ultraviolet, and that's how the kestrels knew to hunt there. But apparently, that's not true. Things change all the time in wildlife. You're learning all the time. And what was right last week might not be right next week. Okay, next please. Now, this pair of otters was on Tay Street in Perth. My mum and I decided to take a walk from Tay Street to Inveralmond one day.
And just right at the viewing platform, before we'd even set off, was a mother with 2 cubs. Again, please. They were fishing for eels. So it just shows you, even in the city centre, there is wildlife. Beavers on the Ruthven, otters on the Tay. Crazy. Next, please. A recognised little face is the roe deer, and if you walk the Auchterarder Path Network, you've definitely seen these guys. This is a young one, just legged it the minute after I'd taken this shot. They're very, very cute deer, I love them. The males or bucks will grow small velvet antlers which they will shed every year, and the females, this is obviously a little boy, the females have a right rabbit-like tail on their rump. So when you see them bouncing away and you see the rabbit-like tail, you know you've got females there. Often seen bounding away from you. Okay? Now this was a very lucky shot because it was right next to the puddle and reflected in the puddle. When you're in camera clubs, these are the things they want for competitions. You know, they want reflections and they want things different. Just getting it in focus was, you know, they're so quick. They are our smallest carnivorous mammal in the UK, part of the mustelid family, which is the otters, beavers, badgers, etc. I've never seen another weasel since I saw this one that day. Much smaller than the stoat and missing the tip of the black tail. Stoats are small also, but much larger. I would akin that to a mouse size. It was so small. Next, please. Another familiar face round the hills and fields round Auchterarder are the brown hares. They live entirely in the open and dig out a scrape in the ground called a form, which they will have their leverets in, and the leverets are above ground from the moment they're born. Early spring, around now, they're starting to pair up in box, and it's the females who are the main boxers. Next again. And we have the mountain hare, just a wee drive up a small glen. Okay, I did have to get out of the car and actually go up the hill, but they're there. Native to the UK, unlike the brown hare that came around the Romans, these live high up on the plateaus of the mountains and highlands of Scotland. They're slightly smaller than the brown hare and extremely shy, but they're easily spotted in early spring as their white fur stands out against the heather moorland. I call that hare's rock. Next, please. Once in a lifetime shots. Now this is a white-tailed sea eagle, framed just by the dead tree, taken on New Year's Day this year actually. Ardnamurchan is a place that my partner and I spend a lot of time, and it never disappoints with wildlife. It's absolutely wonderful. Next, please. Kingfisher with fish. Now again, this was just down the Ruthven one evening when I was sitting waiting for the beavers to come out. This little female kingfisher, you can tell she's a female because her underbill is orange. If she was a male, her full beak would be dark. So the females have a lighter bill. They are extremely shy, and if they spot you, you tend to just see a flash of blue. And they can travel up to 40 kilometres an hour. They go really, really quick. Next again, please. Adder. Ooh. The only time I've ever seen an adder. They were much smaller than what I was expecting. They are the UK's only venomous snake. Absolutely beautiful. The picture just doesn't do it justice. The markings, the colours on it. Here it is in just a regular basking position. They tend to come out in the mornings, bask in the sunshine, and then they'll go out in the afternoons into the undergrowth out to hunt. I was surprised by how small they are. I don't know if you can see, but on the eye of the adder, you can see almost like it's got a skin that's just about ready to have a shed. So if I'd waited maybe later that day or the next couple of days, it would have shed its skin. I did have a look around to see if I could find any discarded skins, but I've got a really strange curiosity cabinet. Next. Crossbill, very distinct species, again, really uncommon. and they tend to hang up really high up in the trees, so they're a real challenge for photography. This was taken just over at Kinross. This is a male bird, much more striking than the female, which does, tends to be the way. You can see in that image though the crossbill there, which is perfect for extracting pine cones. They're absolutely stunning birds, and we just don't see enough of them. Next. Ospreys, of course. Now, we're very fortunate in Perthshire to have a good number of nesting pairs in the area. This is an adult bird on the left with a juvenile on the right. And you can see the juvenile is just about the same size as their mum. They grow very, very quickly. By the time they're ready to leave for Africa, they are, adult size. Just about seeing that image that the junior one has a much more orange eye and a bit more of a mottled sort of feathering. That's the really only way you can tell the difference. They eat only fish, of course, catching it with supreme accuracy. They migrate to Africa with the mother leaving first, and then the chicks, and then the father will be the last to leave. Next, please. So these are some seasonal locals to look out for. Next, meadow pipit. The classic little brown joey that's everywhere. Very, unassuming little bird, but they're absolutely wonderful. Commonly seen in our fields and heaths around sort of springtime. They have an amazing display flight. It's kind of like a skylark. They'll come flying up and with their tails in the air. I'm not going to demonstrate, but it's absolutely wonderful. Next, please. One swallow doesn't make a summer, and of course, our swallows, martins and swifts are also in severe decline. So I'm not going to talk too much about them because it upsets me. Next. Autumn, long-tailed tits, a little lollipop of birds. Right now I'm seeing a lot of these guys in the trees, the parks and down by the burn. They move in gangs called volaries, tend to be up to 200 birds, and they'll also hang about with other birds like tree creepers and blue tits. And this time of year, obviously, it's safety in numbers, so they'll move in gangs, stripping the seeds off the trees and any little insects that might be left. Next. Now, this year we've had a waxwing winter. In November, I went on a twitch to Kinross to see these birds. I had never seen them before, but this winter, you'll maybe seen it on the news, there's been a huge influx of these birds because it's been so cold over in the continent. They come over, they strip our berries, round trees, anything with berries on it, they will strip it. And they just move slowly further south. So the beginning of November when we saw these, by the middle of December they were on the south coast of England. So they move really fast, and it was estimated, I think there was to be about 350,000 that came over this year. So a real huge amount. Beautiful looking birds, really, really nice. Okay, next. So, the littler things. This is a small tortoise shell, one of our most recognised butterflies. They hibernate. Sometimes you can find them in your attics or, cupboards and things. Please leave them if you see them. They'll come out when they're ready. They'll come out. They are one of the first to emerge as well. But you can see them everywhere in Scotland, from mountain to garden, which is pretty rare with butterflies. Next. So, common darter dragonfly. A lot of animal names have common in the title, not that common. Again, these are more prolific down south, but in Scotland there's not that many. They like lochs, ponds, even verges, and they are a really restless species, and they fly late into the year, so you can still see these guys November time. Next. Small copper butterfly. Now this was captured in July last year, and it was the first. I've been on the hunt for them for years, and it's the first time I've ever seen one. Again, went through a huge decline in the 20th century, getting rid of our sorrel grasslands, our wild grasses, intensive farming. Obviously, it's not great for a lot of things. These are very territorial as well. They'll stick on a perch, and if any insect comes near, they'll attack it and chase after it. They are, let's say, found where sorrels and wild grasses are, and we're losing them at a huge rate. Next. One of our most familiar butterflies, you get these in your gardens, they're everywhere, the meadow brown. They're our most abundant as well, but they're also vulnerable to intensive farming due to the loss of grassland. Again, more common in the south, and they're found in woodland and edges and often in your gardens. Now, all of those images of those past insects had one thing in common. They're all on wildflowers. They're not on garden flowers, they're all on weeds or wildflowers that grow out. Insects and pollinators, they prefer things that are native. They want the native plants. Next. That's a comma. So named, can't actually see it in this image, but on the underside of the wing, they have a white comma mark. It just looks like somebody's gone with a little bit of Tipex and put a comma. Beautiful. Next. Peacock. Now, that's our most recognised butterfly and probably the one that comes to your garden. Here it is on a buddleia, also known as the butterfly bush. Not native, but, you know, the butterflies like it, so we'll let it off. They are attracted to a host of garden flowers, unlike a lot of the other butterflies. And again, they're one of the first ones on the wing after hibernation. So on a sunny day, just now, you can see them out and about. Now, they eat and they lay their eggs on nettles. Now, what more reason do you need to leave a nettly patch in your garden? You'll have those guys flying about, absolute style. The eyes are obviously a deterrent for predators. You know, they see the eyes and they think it's something bigger than it actually is. Next. Common lizard. Again, these guys are around, but we don't see them very often. This is one in a typical basking pose. Once they warm up, they disperse off into the vegetation to eat spiders and things. Again, great for having in your garden, but they're quite rare in your garden. But if you have a log pile, they like to bask on that as well. They're a hibernating species, coming sort of active around late February, early March, and they're adder's favourite snack. So where I saw the adder, that's where I saw the lizard. Next, please. They are quick and easily disturbed, but they will often return back to the same basking spot. This one shows real colour differences between the last one. I mean, there's such a different colour variations and patterns. And, you know, not a lot of people like reptiles, but look at the colours and that. It's just absolutely beautiful. Next. So, the boring stuff. The ethics of wildlife. Everything is endangered. It maybe isn't, but that's the way I look at it. You know, learn to research. If I know I'm going to go out looking for something, then I'll have a look in books and reference books online. There's good apps that you can use for birding to find out where things are. Find a good location. Pick a spot with no disturbance. Always, if you think you're too close, you probably are. Observe with respect. It's all common sense, but as we all know, common sense is not that common. If you don't get the desired shot, you can come back another time. Next. Okay, so, things that I do not do. I never give exact locations. You give exact locations of a rare bird, before you know it, you've got 20 toggers all standing on the big legs, and the bird's gone. You know, I'm all for people seeing things that they don't often see, but, you know, everything in moderation. It's like if you go to a mountain and the car park's full, park somewhere else and go up a different mountain. I would never use a flash. Again, self-explanatory. I would never bait an animal with food it would not find. So, squirrels. Monkey nuts are actually not very good for squirrels, but people think, you know, all nuts, again, I did a little bit of research to find that out, they're not good for their bones. So you have to, if you're going to feed animals or give them things, it has to be something that they will forage for naturally in our landscape. So sometimes in the summer, for the squirrels, I'll put apples out or plums, things that they would find in people's gardens, you know. But I draw the line at bananas. What's the other one people like to do? Peanut butter sandwiches for pine martens. You know, they don't want peanut butter sandwiches. You know, any refined carbs for animals is a no-no. I would never purposely flush anything, like I said before. If you think they're too close, you probably are. never disturb anything nesting. There's actually laws in place for a lot of nesting birds, even birds like the kingfisher. It's actually illegal to photograph them in the nest. And I would never imitate calls or sounds. And you do see a lot of people doing that, though, cuckoo, on their walk to get the cuckoo to follow them. It's detrimental to the birds. If that cuckoo follows you all the way along his walk, then he's just lost half a day finding his girl, hasn't he? Next, please. Okay, so, over the last 3 years, I have photographed 143 species of birds, mostly locally. We're going to have a little quiz and see if you can recognise any, and if anybody gets them all right, there's a prize. Now, I'll allow you just to hold your hands up and shout out, if there's any cheating, we'll have to get a adjudicator. Next, please. Okay, so here's the first one. Any ideas? Stone chat, well done. So-called named chat, it sounds like two stones knitting together. Bird names tend to do what they are. Kingfisher is the king of fishing. A dipper, Okay, so, next. Anybody know who this is?
Shell duck.
No, it is a duck.
Eider duck.
Eider duck, yay, well done. Again, over in the Americas, places there are farms to fill your goose jackets and your duvets. Next. Our only native aquatic songbird, here he is with food in his mouth on his way to the nest.
A dipper.
I was going to say, I gave it away a minute ago. Dipper, yeah, dipper. Again, a bird that is what it does. Constantly dipping. Next. Oh, now this could be a tricky one. There was one of these spotted in Blackford just quite recently. That's why I popped it on. This was actually taken in Montrose, but because there's been one spotted locally, I thought I'm just going to throw it in.
Whack. Can't get the name though.
Okay. Anyone?
It's not a corn creek, is
It's
it?
a water reel.
Right.
Very similar, though. Very
Yeah.
similar. Okay, and next one.
I got it wrong.
A little bit of bourbon cheese. Yay! Farmers bird, always out, hedgerows, and they said a little bit of bourbon cheese. And I don't like cheese either, so great. But again, a really well-named bird, zesty yellow, and hammers its tail. They're one of my all-time favourite birds. They're just starting to come back now again. We get them all times of the year, but like most birds, they migrate, they move. So the ones that are here just now are probably the ones that are on the move. The ones that are going to come and nest here will be on their way. Okay, next. That was just the answers there. And nobody got them all right, so nobody gets them right. Next.
You should do it.
Now, if you would like a go at capturing local wildlife, get to know your subject. If you see something, go home, look it up in a book, find out what it likes to eat, where it likes to mate, what it likes to nest in. It's simple, but it's great. Placing a trail camera in your garden. Again, you think you've got hedgehogs, but you're not sure. You can get a trail camera for about £40. They're great. You just put it in your garden, set it off, and when you're sleeping at night, you can see who's creeping around. Probably, I'll give you a bet, it'll be next door neighbour's cat. Be patient. Take a chair and a hot cuppa, and when you immerse yourself in nature for 5 minutes even, wonderful things happen. And as Mark always says to me, get outside. You're not going to see it if you're not outside or you're not looking out your window. Next, please. Okay, so this is the sort of basic stuff that I take out with me when I'm out and about. I have a big rucksack with my waterproofs, a hot drink, a chair. I do get a sore back, and it does get tiring. But the one time I don't take my camera out, what do you think happens? A golden eagle flies by, and it's inevitable. Okay, next. I do try and blend into the environment by wearing sort of muted tones. And when I go out, I don't wear perfume, and
and I try and stay downwind of the animals so they don't get a whiff of me, especially the roe deer. If they get a whiff of you, they're off. And always, let's say, carry a glass of water or a bottle of water and a hot drink. Right, okay? So, if anybody has any questions that they would like to ask about anything that I've discussed or anything that you want to know about the wildlife in your garden, I'll try and answer it if I can. No? I can give you a minute to think.
We always took bread to feed the ducks.
No, do not feed the ducks bread. I'll be honest with you, don't even feed your garden birds bread. It's not great. I have a neighbour that does it, and do you know what it does? It brings in the corvids, the jackdaws, the crows. Also, you know, a lot of people get annoyed because they want to feed the little birds, and the wood pigeons and the collared doves all come. You know, bread and things, that tends to what will attract the bigger birds in. You can get bird feeders now that will have a grill round that can only allow the smaller birds in. And again, you can pick one of them up for £10 or £12. Another thing I would say about bird feeding in your garden, though, which is really important, is that pigeons, a lot of birds, but pigeons mainly, they carry a disease that will be passed on through their feeders. So if you are going to feed your garden birds, at least maybe once a fortnight or once a month, you have to take those feeders down and you have to clean them. My mum is a great example of this. She said to me a few months ago, "My goldfinches are missing. I've not seen any." And I said, "When was the last time you cleaned out your feeder?" "Oh, I've never done it." So, what happened when she cleaned it out in that afternoon? A charring goldfinches was back. So, you know, would you want to eat off a dirty plate? No. And I say to my mum as well in the summer, if you've got fresh water out in your garden, keep it fresh. Every day just put some fresh water in, you know? And have somewhere in the summer where your birds can bath and get a drink. And, you know, a little jar for the hedgehogs as well. When I put water out in the garden and I put a trail camera, I had 3 hedgehogs come into the garden. They must have been absolutely, you know, dehydrated and starving. Okay, next slide. Just some useful websites that I tend to go to. They're my go-to websites. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.